start with the recent sell-off. What's that? Is that cryptocurrencies using momentum?
No, it's just a quick pit stop at the gas station before we go on the long road trip. Well, the demand is still incredibly strong. We got a lot of things to look forward to. The Clarity Act is likely going to get passed, and that's going to bring a lot of institutional players in. So I think probably middle of next year, $250,000 Bitcoin.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Megan Nelson, aka Crypto Megan, tuning in from sunny southern Marbella, Spain for another update for you during this really intense, exciting, and emotional part of the cycle. As many people are wondering, is this cycle topping? Is it over? How long do we have left? And how high will Bitcoin go? And most importantly, for most of you watching this channel, will we get altcoin season and when will it happen? So I'm going to do my best to answer as quickly as I can in the intro what I believe will play out and when and how to play out. And then we'll get into more details throughout the episode comparing Bitcoin to gold when the gold ETF was launched, as well as Bitcoin supply, why this rally was driven primarily, and whether or not I believe we're still in a super cycle of sorts, or if we may see that typical 4-year cycle. So most importantly, I'll give you the details now, but it's important to have that conviction and understanding as to how and why we get where we're going. So let me start off here. I think most people can agree that we will hit $1 million per Bitcoin sooner rather than later, right? Maybe within the next 5 to 10 years. If you're watching this channel, you believe in Bitcoin. If you believe in Bitcoin, then, with the debasement of the dollar and the way that things are going with the government and the Fed and all of the things happening in the economy, I know it's just inevitable where we're headed. And I think that's why most people are in this. Now, the other question is, where are we going in the more short term and how do we get there? So let me back this up a little bit. Most of the people that I interviewed for my podcast this season, some of the top people in the industry, Yatsu, co-founder of Animoca Brands, Kevin O'Leary, the biggest shark of Shark Tank, right? Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano, so many different people. All of their predictions for Bitcoin this cycle ranged from $150,000 to $250,000 Bitcoin. So now let's examine what's happening on this recent pump and where I believe we're headed. So let's have a look back at some of the stats from one of my favorite analysts in this space, Eric Crown. As he said, if we get a green September, then stats show that most likely we'll get a very green Q4 to the tune of 50 to 60% higher for Bitcoin, which will put Bitcoin around $170,000. Now we're here in October. We've just hit all-time highs, new fresh all-time highs for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is pulling back. And that's producing a lot of fear. But I want to remind you guys that although we're in greed right now, and we're in greed yesterday, maybe that'll pull back a little bit with this recent dip. Last month, we were in fear. In fact, I think about a few weeks ago, we were in fear. So the scales tip very quickly in crypto, especially at this stage where everybody's waiting for that beloved altcoin season, right? So then we did have that green September. We closed at about 114K, and stats show that October not just October, Q4 will be green. But what's going to happen now in October? Why are we dipping? Is this normal? One trader sums it up really well here as he says, we are working on the pullback after the strong move upwards. Absolutely. Now, the next move is going to tell whether or not we're going to spend a lot more time consolidating here and potentially visiting those lower 100,000s, which could be very healthy for Bitcoin long term, or if we're just going to stay above 118,000 and continue this run. Let me make one thing clear. It's staying above that $118,000 pivot as a baseline is pivotal for us to continue this run as is right now. So closing below that would signal something different. Another stat is 99% of all the Bitcoin supply is now in profit. And the last time that happened, Bitcoin went on a 3 to 10% correction. So guys, all in all, a correction here is normal, but what kind of correction will we see? And will we close below those pivotal levels? If not, then it is more than likely we are going to close astoundingly green this Q4. And the high for October typically comes in the very last week of October. So as I always say on this channel, a little bit more patience is key. We've come this far. Don't fumble the ball at this point. Keep your eyes on the prize. We're getting ready to go into what I believe is going to be like founder of Cardano, Charles Hoskinson, says the Giga Chad bull run. And it's just like he says in the intro. He believes that Bitcoin will be at 250,000 by mid 2026, which lines up with a lot of things that I'm looking at. But how do we get there? And why does he believe this cycle is different? Well, actually, it's because it's not just retail driven anymore. We have institutions now, and we have banks getting in, and those institutions and all of these big players like Robinhood, they're going to onboard 500 million to 1 billion new users. That is massive.
But there's just simply too many people and too much money coming in space relative to the supply. So I think we're still headed towards a bull market. So I think all the alts are going to enjoy a nice spike, but typically there's a lag. So Bitcoin goes up, it stalls, and then the alts come up, and then the market goes down. It reaches a new plateau. We sit there for a few years, and then we go up. Those cycles were retail driven, and they were every 4 years. But now that we have all this institutional involvement, we have things like the Clarity Act coming. You're going to have probably another 500 million to 1 billion users entering the space as the Magnificent Seven come in and they integrate crypto into their platforms. We're already starting to see the banks come in because of the Genius Act, and these create disruptions that are unpredictable because that's a different kind of capital than these retail cycles that we have. So in terms of price, I still firmly believe that Bitcoin's probably going to peak somewhere around 250,000 sometime next year. And then
next year is middle of next year?
Probably about middle of next year. It just depends on the macroeconomics.
Sorry for my voice, guys. I've been a little sick these days, but I didn't want to let this one go because I wanted to give you these updates as, you know, I really value you being there for me in my community, which is why I'm working very hard to bring you one of the best Discords out there with some of the top traders in the world to be able to take advantage of what I believe is going to be one of the biggest altcoin rallies of all time. So I don't believe we're coming to a Bitcoin top right now in October when we have alts on the floor and a lot of healthy fear in the market. We're not by any means close to any metrics that show us that we're at a top of a bull run. In fact, the Bitcoin RSI at the top of the bull run usually gets to an 80 on the monthly. We're now in the 60s. And without those massive euphoric blow-off tops, we don't really have to worry about those massive drops to the downside, right? So that's one thing. We are in a solid uptrend. Now the question is, what will post Q4 look like? Because this Q4, as it stands, is looking like it's going to be very, very green. And potentially, as Charles Hoskinson says, if we're no longer in this 4-year cycle driven primarily by retail, rather banks, institutions, and the likes, then we could see a potential mini bear come in the beginning of January, from maybe January to around May. We could potentially see a newly sparked optimism when the Fed, Jerome Powell, is replaced by Trump with somebody else who's going to be very market oriented and most likely aligned with Trump and the Trump administration. And that also comes into midterms in November. So that could lead us to that 250,000 top that Charles Hoskinson and many other analysts are talking about for this cycle. One other thing I want to point out, which is also noted by this trader, Will Clemente, is that we could get one last dip, like I spoke about on the last YouTube that I put up. We could get this one more sharp correction in the beginning of October, which we could potentially be seeing now, before that next kind of euphoric phase. But the most bullish thing about this Bitcoin move is that it wasn't driven by treasury companies or perp degens. It was driven by spot ETF buying, which is likely macro PMs and funds viewing Bitcoin as a rotation from commodities and small caps. So this is a good sign, and actually Glassnode has data to back that up. So we're going to get into all that and some hot altcoins and what I believe will happen with the altcoins in this episode. So if you like that, smash a like, hit the subscribe and the notification bell, and let's get right into it. All right, so before we get into the rest of this episode and the how we're going to get to these price points on Bitcoin and altcoins, I want to thank the partner for this channel, iTrustCapital, one of the most trusted crypto IRA firms out there, and I truly believe in their mission and what this means for our future selves. There aren't a lot of options out there to buy and sell and trade crypto within your IRA, and the benefits are astounding in that you get to buy and sell and trade tax-free within that IRA, and there are so many ways to optimize this, and it is just such a benefit at this point in the cycle, which is why I just made my first deposit, and I'll be going over the platform with you guys in another episode. We'll also be doing an interview with one of the top executives to walk us through this, but you can buy and sell crypto, gold, and silver with your IRA. And I believe there's about 70 different cryptos that you can choose from now, so it's astounding. They've made 15 billion transactions and over 200,000 accounts, guys. And the coolest thing is, if you already have a Roth IRA, you can do a direct transfer from that IRA over here to this IRA with crypto or cash, and also the same with your 401k. You can convert that. So you don't need to tap into even new cash. You can just fund your account with an existing IRA out there, and they will help you. Their customer service team is phenomenal. I'm so excited to get started on this journey. So when my account is funded, I will take you through. It is a very, very simple process. And yeah, I love the interface. It's very user-friendly. And I believe in this mission, guys. I believe in arming yourself with these tools for the future. Now is the time to start preparing. Pay yourself a little bit off of all those successful trades and keep it for the future and let it grow, let it flourish. Guys, I couldn't be more excited for this. So stay tuned. If you want to sign up and fund your account now, you can use the code Megan9. That'll give you a $100 funding bonus and you'll be supporting the channel. So yeah, I'm excited to dig deeper into that in a future episode, but now let's get to it. We have this very important point from Raoul Pal from Real Vision. Diversification is dead. If you're not beating 11%, you're getting poorer. And that is the absolute fact, truth of it. What Anthony Pompliano said in the beginning, stocks are up, I don't know how many percent, but they're actually down compared to a hard asset like Bitcoin. This is the truth. Governments are quietly debasing fiat. Hyper concentration may be the only way to stay ahead. Enter the everything code. Buy Bitcoin. Guys, buy Bitcoin, buy altcoins, get in the market. We are about to rip. I strongly believe it. If you're not positioned, you're going to miss out. And that's how I feel, and that's how I'm playing this. Not financial advice, but I believe this is one of the most important times to be dialed in your entire life. So I wanted to get back into the setup that I pointed out in the beginning of the episode, where if we don't hold support at that $118,000 baseline, right, for Bitcoin just to use as the springboard and take off from here, then the other scenario is one that Eric Crown had mentioned earlier on his stream and many other analysts, where Bitcoin likes to do a reconnect with the red 5 EMA on the monthly, right? So if that were to happen, those levels are in the low 100,000s. And that doesn't mean that Bitcoin wouldn't be bullish. We'd still be bullish. We're still bullish in the low 100,000s, even though it would create a lot of fear. So I would look at it as likely a very good opportunity. So if you want to be able to trade that opportunity, there's a link in the description below for BYDFi. We're about to do a massive sign up bonus. So do check that out, guys. And I will be announcing the Discord this week for the trading the Hive by Crypto Megan, I'm going to call it. So stay tuned for that. And here we have Tom Lee, who's building one of the most epic Ethereum treasury funds, BMNR, Bitmine, which I'm invested in as well. He says that we could be looking at an AI boom that isn't necessarily too inflated right now compared to where we were in the .com boom. Check it out.
Doesn't mean every company that has elevated valuation today deserves to actually have the capital, and that company may not even reinvest that capital properly to be a survivor. So I agree there is going to eventually be a shakeout, but I think valuations, strangely enough, are actually pretty reasonable today compared to 1998, because 1998 was that liftoff point before that final 18-month surge. And I'd say the best benchmark is NVIDIA trades at 26 times forward earnings. Cisco at that same exact moment was at 60 times, and Cisco's PE peaked at 210 times forward earnings. So NVIDIA to me is still a bargain at 26 times. It's cheaper than Costco and Walmart, which are close to 50 times forward earnings.
So he's essentially saying there's a lot more room to run in this AI boom, that we are not at the peak yet. And that sentiment is echoed across the Bitcoin market, across crypto markets in general. Gold is flying, like I said before, at its highest RSI in, I think, 45 years at a 90. People are piling into gold as a safe haven asset. And generally what follows when gold soars is a rotation into Bitcoin. Just the same when the dollar tanks, a rotation into Bitcoin. These flights to quality and these flights to safety, Bitcoin is next on the spectrum, right? So there's a lot of comparisons we're going to look at, because I really want you guys to visualize and get it deep in your bones what is happening here, because I do not want you to fold with fear that we're at the top of the cycle and that we're going down from here, because that is not what I believe is happening. So just a friendly reminder, Michael Saylor says, no new orange dots this week, but just a $9 billion reminder of why we hodl. Yes, up and to the right. Also, powerful reminder, it's looking a lot like repeating price action from 2017. And I've seen a lot of this sentiment echoed across X. As you can see, we have the low here, and then we've got the higher low, and then we've got blast off, right? So he's equating it to this higher low that we're seeing right around here that came in at 108,000, and we're currently working on higher levels from here. So guys, 50 to 60% puts us at $170,000 Bitcoin, right around there. I believe we can get there by the end of this year for sure. And we're looking for the high at the end of this month in October if we can hold those $118,000 levels. Another reminder from the Pomp, Anthony Pompliano, we've done Twitter spaces with him several times. Everyone is bragging the S&P 500 is up more than 100% since 2020, but the index is actually down 88% when priced in a hard asset like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the hurdle rate. If you can't beat it, you have to buy it. The GOAT. Absolutely, guys. This is it. This is why people will pile into Bitcoin at astounding rates. If you just understand this one thing, then you'll be wildly successful in these markets. And having a portfolio that's, heavily weighted in Bitcoin and the majors to hedge, these downward movements, but having some portion of your portfolio toward newer altcoins like Aster or, Hype and things like that, and the longer tail altcoins will help you maximize that wealth strategy in your portfolio in the long term. So I'm going to do a video on that, but I just want you to understand where we're headed and what it's looking like right now. Sorry again for my raspy voice, but I don't want to go weeks without updating you because we're at a pivotal point in the market, sort of like last time when I came back on right before the halving, and I called it 200 days to success before the halving. 200 days. We're right there again, guys. 200 days until, peak euphoria for this year. Before maybe we have a little mini bear from January to May, 4 to 6 months. We can stomach that. We can get through it. We've been through all of it, right? We're at a 3% adoption rate right now, 3 to 4%. 16% is mass adoption. We will get there. What will it look like in between? A lot of ups and downs. But you better believe that I'm going to be there for all of that ride and that I have every step of the way. I'm thinking about what I'm doing. I'm thinking about when I'm going to take profits, and I'm in it for the long term. So here is the RSI. Here is the from Plan B, RSI 69, not overbought, 80 plus confirming solid uptrend. So you can see when, Bitcoin gets into these peak territories, we see these red dots, and we usually get around 80, a minimum of 80 RSI, right? And we haven't had that at all this cycle. So there's no reason to believe that we've seen the top yet. Here's proof from Glassnode that Bitcoin spot ETF flows have turned sharply positive, driving price to new all-time highs. Renewed institutional demand is reinforcing market momentum, making a key shift in capital flows after weeks of outflows. Sustained inflows signal strengthening structural support into Q4. So again, this rally is not driven by speculation or retail, it's driven by spot ETF buying, and that is powerful. Here we have Bitcoin on exchanges hits a 5-year low. Supply shock imminent. We keep seeing this. People are taking their Bitcoin off exchanges. It's only a matter of time before we get that epic supply shock that we will inevitably get. There's lots of news on the ETFs. ETFs cracked 800 billion. So this is from a little while ago, but just to give you an idea, 800 billion year to date. That's breathtaking $5 billion per day pace. I'm old enough to remember 1 billion per day. That puts them at a pace to hit about 1.2 trillion this year, a new record. And you've also got US spot Bitcoin ETFs see 3.2 billion in weekly inflows, the second highest ever recorded, while Ethereum ETFs draw 1.3 billion. So guys, they're piling in. They are piling into these spot Bitcoin and ETH ETFs. Also, a huge thing, ETH staking just went live in US on the spot ETFs. Up until now, ETFs were just exposure and staking was off limits to institutional investors. Now they earn yield. This changes everything. Liquidity and capital floodgates are officially opening. Cardano coming soon. I truly believe that about Cardano as well. And yes, this is huge. Not only can they hold this asset that's appreciating at a spectacular rate, but they're also getting yield now. That changes the game. Here we have Bitcoin and gold both act as hedges during market turbulence. Same goal, different paths. 5 and 10-year returns. 5-year Bitcoin return is 1,000% versus gold's 80, and 10-year is 52,000% versus gold's 200. Bitcoin outperformed gold by a massive margin over time, and I strongly believe it will continue to do so. So check this out. $1.3 trillion mogul Morgan Stanley says Bitcoin is a scarce asset akin to digital gold. The firm will allow financial advisors to flexibly allocate crypto to their portfolios. Guys, I remember when I was talking to friends at firms like Morgan Stanley, and they didn't even know what crypto was. And now it's like 4 or 5 years ago. And now they're able to flexibly allocate. Things are changing. And so it's logical for us to think that the cycles may not remain the same either. So here we have an article by Vanek that says Bitcoin reaching half of gold's market value, but when? I did have Anthony Scaramucci on my podcast. He said the same thing, that Bitcoin could reach half the market cap of gold and it still be undervalued in his opinion. At the time when we recorded that podcast, to get to half of gold's market cap was a $350,000 Bitcoin. Now it's a $644,000 Bitcoin, okay? That's wild. So to capture half of gold's $26 trillion market cap. Bitcoin's current market cap stands at 2.48 trillion and is up 12% over the last 30 days. So we are already having a very green Q4. Let's see how it continues to unfold. But reaching half of gold's market cap requires a 5.6x appreciation from here. Given Bitcoin's shift to stable, absolute dollar gains of 50 to 60,000 per cycle rather than exponential surges, this target is more realistic over 5 to 10 years. I believe it'll go a little bit higher than that. I think it will go faster than that. It is the fastest growing technology adoption curve in history, but I do agree that we can easily reach half the market cap of gold. And here we have the gold ETF launch from November 2004, overlaid with the Bitcoin ETF launch in January 2024. And as you can see, it's following it pretty closely. I mean, we had this massive correction now. Will we be up and to the right, through 2026? And that's what all signs are pointing to. We just had the first rate cut of 3 to 4 total, right? We're just beginning to get in that environment where money printer turns on, risk on assets go wild. We are not up to pace with the global M2 money supply liquidity in the world. So we got to catch up to that as well. And just looking at this now for gold and also how the dollar is starting to tank, all of this stuff points to we're going to go into 2026 with this bull run, and that I don't think we're following those typical 4-year retail driven cycles anymore to a T like we have before. So this is the M2 global money supply. I wanted to show you how we're lagging that by quite a bit actually. So just one more key factor in the fact that I don't believe that we've seen the top or we're near the top right now as it stands. But that being said, when this next phase comes and this next pump comes, it'll happen quickly. So we've got to be prepared. Don't get shaken out by this dip. Stick to the facts that I said in the beginning and just follow your plan, guys. And, just know that if we're going to have a more prolonged correction, then it's healthy for the market. Otherwise, let's try to stay above 118,000, create that springboard and off to the races. And then your altcoin season, right? This is a zone I'm expecting for Bitcoin dominance in the coming weeks. The reason is liquidity is now favoring Bitcoin, so a rise in dominance is expected. After a 60 to 61% zone, Bitcoin dominance will start its downtrend, leading to an alt rally. Yes, that alt rally is coming inevitably. I mean, we've seen what Zcash did. It skyrocketed. That will happen to every single altcoin. All right, not every altcoin, but to a lot of the majors, and then it'll go into the mids, and we'll see that altcoin season. Right now, we might pump into that 61 to 62%, and then, get the more long-term downward correction on Bitcoin dominance, and we'll see that altcoin season. That is how the capital goes. That's how it rotates, and I believe that we're not going to see anything different this cycle. ETH balances on exchanges fell off a cliff in September as demand increased, fueled by Bitmain's aggressive purchasing. I believe ETH is going to surprise a lot of people. I do like Tom Lee. I like what he's doing. I like what he's building, and the concept of increasing your holdings of ETH per share. His targets for this year are $10,000 to $12,000. I believe $8,000 to $10,000 is possible. Above that, potentially as well, right? When we see those heated sort of blow off top moments. Now, that being said, I don't think we're going to have the traditional 70% drawdown on Bitcoin, maybe 40 to 50%, right? But I believe that the bear markets are going to be less impactful and less time as this industry matures. And here you can see altcoin market cap secures its highest weekly close in history. We are headed up and to the right, guys, up and to the right. It's only a matter of time. Zcash broke an 8-year logarithmic channel against Bitcoin on September 29th, which is massive, right? First time Zcash has gained ground on Bitcoin since 2017 when altcoins outperform Bitcoin in a Bitcoin rally. Pay attention. That's true. And also, why are we seeing that? Well, I believe that this is a long thread about it, but 3 important missions in crypto: markets, store value, privacy, and freedom. I believe that the whole privacy and, protecting your data will come into play this cycle. And that's why we're seeing this run on Zcash and others like Secret Network, which I'm a part of and a board member of, which is now at its lows, will come raging back. And so, I have to disclose that I have holdings in that. I am a board member, but I truly believe in Secret Network's mission. And I think they're going to have a massive run along with a lot of other coins that are, protecting privacy and data. And here we have watching for XRP to break out of the wedge. Good solid daily candle close above the top orange line should start the move up to $4. XRP is looking good. So many of them are looking good. We're looking for those breaks above their 200 daily moving averages, their 4-hour 200 moving averages. And a lot of them are going to get back to that point where there will be a very good entry again. So if you're not already positioned, it's time to get positioned. It's time to keep averaging into those positions, which is what I'm doing for my long-term bags, and may well be the very last opportunity. And then we have another one. Tomorrow, Aptos becomes the 6th chain to integrate Donald Trump's backed World Liberty Fi's USD1 stablecoin. There's a lot of news on Aptos lately. I will be picking up some Aptos for this next altcoin run. I think Aptos could do very, very well along with the other layer ones. Yeah, guys, on that note, I am continuing to buy all the coins that are in my majors portfolio, looking to capitalize on this next wave up and then potentially roll that into mid to smaller cap coins. Proppy is another coin on my radar for RWA that is right there at that 200 daily moving average. And I believe it's going to have a massive, massive run along with the other RWAs as the leader in ownership on chain and real estate on chain. And so that's one that I'm accumulating, as well as hbar, Cardano, Stellar, XRP, Theta, T-Fuel, and Ethereum. I actually am picking up a little bit more Ethereum, getting ready for this ride. And of course, we're going to get heavy into trading as this next massive euphoric wave comes over, which is the easiest time to make money. So if you want to get involved, we will be launching our Discord later this week. We'll give you instructions on how to get involved with some of the top traders in the world. And I'm so excited for what's coming, guys. Don't get shaken out. Keep your eyes on the prize. And it's been a great one. I'll see you tomorrow.